Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Man Cave on the Morning Star Drive on 107.8. Yes, today we have a brand new crew. I think it's the first time we've had the three of us together, so it should be quite interesting, quite fun. We got Cameron over there in Atlanta. Well, where are you right now, bro?
Houston right now. Yep, last day.
Last day. All right. And from Provicom, we got Chris Jansen below. All right. Thank you for the really Asian eyes you just did there. It wasn't offensive, by the way.
I'm just not honoring you.
Yes, thank you. I felt honored with the here, I should do it. And of course there's Sky. Oh, hi.
Oh
Hello.
my God.
How's everything going for everyone here? How's everything going over there in Atlanta?
Yeah, it's going good. I haven't been in Atlanta for the past month, but I've been enjoying my time in Houston with the Houston church.
Nice.
Uh, good care of the guys mostly, and excited to go back to Atlanta and see my family.
Nice. Well, you, Chris, what's going on over there?
Sky, do you remember the first thing that you said to me in Houston after not seeing me for 10 years or something?
Oh no. I know something's gonna come up and I'm gonna try to regret. I'm gonna regret
I don't I
when you
I
say
don't even
this.
I don't even you remember though, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I don't think I had my hair down, but you were like, "Oh, hello Jesus. Uh, please open my Asian eyes." Something like that.
Yeah, no, that sounds like something I'd say. That's totally something I would really say. Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff we need to talk about today, and so many things going on in the comment section on the YouTube channel. So maybe we'll start off with one of the comments that Chris wanted to bring up. Chris, what was the thing that wanted to bring up?
Did you want to read the full comment?
Do you want to read the full or just the bottom part? The full comment?
You can read the full comment, but what I
Okay.
wanted to kind of discuss was the latter part.
Okay. So the comment says, it feels sad and bad when girls think they have no choice but to choose some boys not suitable for them, or just because they cannot find kind of their perfect prince and just get a replacement or alternative for their dream husbands. It's a bit weird and sometimes destroying. If I am only the tool for fulfilling the needs of females' desire of marrying, it should be more than that. Instead of needing men only when girls want to get married. I feel a bit strange when some girls suddenly act differently and cherish men much more than before after they find that there's not enough men for marriage. It makes me doubt that is. It makes me doubt that it, I got confused here last time too. That is a man only valuable or deserve to be treated well only when he can satisfy a girl's need for a husband. It's quite confusing. So, which part were you gonna bring up?
So is the latter part,
Oh,
the feeling used part, because
oh.
I know being married sometimes in
I'm
our
sorry. I,
relation.
I thought you're going straight into I feel used. I feel used in my marriage. I don't know
No,
what she's doing.
actually, actually, it's in reverse. Like
Oh,
sometimes my wife will say that she's being feeling used, and I think that's just another way of her saying she's listening.
right.
But I think it's another way of her saying like she doesn't feel loved.
Oh,
But if we're gonna go into like the Jordan Peterson, genre of speaking about this, the whole philosophical. I mean, if a man wasn't who he was, and the woman, like, if either one didn't have utility, then why would we need marriage and why wouldn't we need each other? If a woman couldn't give birth, and if a man couldn't, provide, then what's the whole point of marriage? There would be no point. And so you're not being used. It's just that that's just the way things work. But
right.
I think what the commenter, I mean, she's female, right?
It's a male.
Oh, it's a male.
It's a male, yeah. It's actually in response to what I said in the podcast. What I was saying was, I felt because there's less guys, right? And and there's a total, like, the ratio is so big where you're going to have 3-to-1, 4-to-1, right? And what I was saying is, I kind of feel bad about that because girls have to settle. You know what I mean? Like, even if, like, my example I gave is, if they're at, let's just pretend there's a level, like they're level 85, but because there's only like 3 guys and none of them are over 85 or close to her, she'll have to settle for a 60 if she wants to get married. You know what I mean? And I felt like I
Yeah,
would feel so, like, bad that she's with me because she had to settle, not
that's true,
because,
and
yeah,
that's true in a sense, but also I think in the same paragraph that you were explaining all that,
yeah,
you also said that it's not really settling because, of course, they're in Providence, which
right,
is also true. I mean, if I found the perfect person for me, but they weren't in Providence, that's the highest key point there, then it
Mm.
wouldn't work anyway. So
right,
it's kind of a moot point.
yeah. No, that's true, because, yeah, it's one of the biggest things that's going to matter to us is going to be faith. Like, to be that close to someone and you can't talk about sunset, you can't talk about Providence.
Yeah, no way.
Right.
No way.
That wouldn't even be, like, it'd be so difficult. But go on, Chris. Like, you're saying that there's a utility there. So what part did you want to discuss?
So he's saying, if you break it down deeper, right? He's
Right.
saying that, do you want to break it down a little more? You have it in front of you, right? But the woman feels that, maybe you should send it to me.
Well, basically, he's saying that it's strange when girls suddenly act differently and cherish men more because there's not enough, right?
I
And it
mean, that's
makes,
true. And between the opposite sexes, we treat each other at different ages even. Like,
right,
in middle school, you ignore each other. And then when the hormones kick in, then you start like being shy around each other. But then at some point, you like get together, you
right,
start advancing towards each other.
right.
So even biologically, there's a utility there. And it's just the design. It's not like you're being used. It's just
Right.
designed that way biologically.
But then why would someone feel used? What do you think? Because, when
Well,
your wife says she feels used, you said, like, it's
right.
because she's
Well,
not feeling. Yeah.
like I said before, it's if you do something without love, then, or if you're doing something like my wife always brings up like transactionally, like I kind of think of things in a transactional kind of way,
Right.
which is
Mm.
kind of like a business kind of way.
Right.
Maybe it's my male brain,
Mm,
maybe it's just how I think as a person.
right.
But because, like, I did this for you, then you should do this for me, like the transactional thing, then it can feel used. But women hate that, you know.
Hey, Cameron, would you say you're more transactional?
No, no, not really.
Oh, okay. Like, you would just do things for people just for the sake of doing it, and you're not expecting anything back.
No. Because then I definitely feel used, but I do, yeah. I guess
Do you want to change your answer?
maybe my word, I don't use transactional. I use the word reciprocal, right? So if somebody does something for me, I reciprocate.
Mm.
I think transactional kind of makes it to
It's a little softer word, yeah. It's a little more amenable.
I think
yeah.
I think the word that we might be thinking about is maybe calculating, because that's really negative. If someone's calculating, like, I spent $10 on you, so you need to spend $10 on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Oh, geez.
calculating. Like, I did
Running
this for
tab in your
you.
mind.
Yeah. And like, when people get calculating, it's like, well, I did this and I spent $40 on you, and you just took me to McDonald's and spent $10, so I still need $30 more. Like, that's calculating, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing that in psychology they say there's the reciprocity is one of the big things that human beings by nature we naturally want to give back if someone gives to us. So they said that Buddhists or people who are like religious people, when they want to get money, they do it in the smartest way. Basically, they come to you and they give you something. Like they already give it to you, put it in your hand, and they're like donation, right? So now that you have something, you feel like you have to give back.
Wow.
When you think about it, God and Sansanam are exactly like that, right?
Yeah.
They're
Well,
always giving.
I think it's almost I find something very interesting about like the way I see how God treats people. I see it in two different ways. Like, there's the carrot on the stick where you have the carrot and it makes the donkey move.
Yeah.
And then there's also the, hey, if you do this, I'll give you a carrot later. Then people move. And this is quite interesting because I realized this like in 2008 or something, that when I was visiting, no, 2005 or 2006 in Europe, when I was pioneering in Europe, and I visited Germany. And the interesting thing is, I went there and everyone's a pastor. Like Sunsi made all of them pastors, right? And for me, I was a pre-pastor, but I really wanted to be a pastor. So me and this pastor were sitting there waiting for the train to come. And I looked at him and said, man, you're so lucky. He's like, why? Because you're a pastor. And he's like, I want to be a pastor. He's like, I never wanted it. And I was like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, God. I want it, but you won't give it to me. And then he doesn't want it, and you give it to him. It made no sense whatsoever. But the next thing he said made me think twice, like made me think deeper. He says, now that Sunsim gave me that mission, I feel burdened. And I feel like I just can't have this mission. I need to do something. And I was like, whoa, that's what, God works according to that person. I want it badly, and he just puts it on a carrot in front of me, like, hey, here it is. Like, oh, I start running towards that carrot, right, to become a pastor. And other people who are kind of, I guess, more introverted, or, they're not like proactive. So he's like straight up, boom, you're a pastor. He's like, oh, my life has to be like a pastor now. And then they start moving after that. So I think God works one of those two ways. Like it's really according to people, to what type of person they are. What I was thinking. Okay, I'm glad you guys are in.
That's a cool insight. Yeah.
Well, I have a question for you guys, because one of the big things that are coming up right now is about male evangelism. And there's one person that talked about they feel like girls have to pick up the slack for guys because there's no guys, right? So, I somewhat agree with it. But why do you think it's reached that point where, we are so far behind? Like that the ratio is so far off. What do you guys think?
Well, you kind of threw this topic out like 3 weeks ago, and I don't know if anybody did a boy hole, man cave, whatever on it, but the lone wolf thing. I think guys are harder to evangelize, because when I think back to when I was evangelized, I was in like 1920, and those were kind of my lone wolf years. Those were like, and biologically too, that's the age when you reject your parents and you separate yourself and you find your own way.
Right.
And that's how biology has designed it. And I think nowadays, like, sometimes people go against biology and stay with their parents too long. But that was the age when I didn't want to be around anybody that was telling me what to do or giving me advice. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do and find my own way. So somebody coming up and trying to give me advice like Pastor Joseph it was hard for me to accept at first, but I gradually came to accept what he was doing and be grateful about it. But I mean, I think the Holy Spirit had to work, because you know, naturally, I think, especially when you're at that age, and that's like kind of the age that we tend to go for, because you're in that area of searching the world for what you're going to do and spiritually as well.
Right.
So you're kind of a lone wolf at that age, so it's harder to grab you. But if a woman comes out, you're also at the age where your hormones, you know, are playing, and they show interest in you for, it doesn't even matter what reason, you're going to react more positively to that than some dude coming up to you and asking you if you want to, you know, be a part of his or whatever he's doing, or, you know, what if it's sports or whatever, maybe they would be more friendly towards that. But otherwise, I think guys don't really hang out with guys unless they've been friends for a long time.
Well, I
We
think
don't
that's
normally
true.
we don't normally go outside of our friend circle.
Right.
Right.
I think statistically, like, we have the same like 10 friends, you know, our whole life, and we don't really venture outside that circle too often.
Mm. Hey, were you like that too, Cameron? When did you have your like your lone wolf stage where you're like, I want to do stuff on my own?
Well, I've always been like super introverted and mostly kept to myself. I had a few very close friends growing up, but I tracked like a lot of people were like friendly towards me, but I didn't really want to have any friendships that weren't deep and meaningful. So
So you want
yeah,
just a pure bromance?
yeah. Oh yeah, those are the best. Those are the best. Those are the best.
Wow.
So
So how did you come to Providence then? Like, what kind of pulled you in?
yeah, I always testify that I might have never came to Providence if it wasn't for my sister. My sister just directly evangelized me, so having her, and we were really close growing up, uh that really helped. Yeah, because I've
Mm,
been the old guy in Georgia for almost 10 years. I mean,
right.
there's been different times where I've been with other guys, but yeah.
And
I was
that's interesting.
also evangelized by women.
Oh, you were?
Still an older Korean lady and a younger Japanese American girl, woman,
And
lady.
it was pretty easy for you to just kind of follow.
Well, they picked me up in the food line at a Christian church, and were
Oh,
like, "You want to
really?
go up for sushi?" And I was like, I didn't really know anybody in Chicago, in the city at that time. I just moved there, so
Oh, nice.
I was like, "Okay, why not?" Even though it was a little out of my price range at the time.
You know what's quite interesting actually? I was evangelized by a guy, and I really didn't like him. I
Oh,
was
really?
just to yeah. That I think that's quite interesting because what Chris, what you're saying in the very beginning is it's a lot easier to be approached by a girl where you're less defensive.
At sushi, I met Pastor Joseph, and
Oh,
then I still wasn't completely into him, but after he taught me a couple lessons, then I, you know, softened up.
yeah. I had the guy coming to me. There's this guy that came to evangelize me, and I was trying my best to get away, but he was
Mhm.
very, very headstrong. Like he was
Wow.
passionate and calling me every day, and I'm trying to find excuses of not to meet this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was pretty actually it's pretty funny because he kept calling, just asking me if I could do Bible study the next day. He just kept calling. You want to do Bible study? Hey, you want to do Bible study tomorrow? I'm like, oh, I gotta mow the lawn. Oh, I gotta wash the dishes.
Power
Oh,
wash
I
my
I
parents'
gotta
house.
power wash my parents' house. Like I'm always thinking about these excuses.
Mm.
And it was like for like a week, kept calling me. And then finally, he just asked me another question. I just wasn't ready for it. He just said to me, "What you doing tomorrow?" And I'm just like a guy like nothing. And he's like, "So you can do Bible study." So I was just like,
So planning
"Oh,
to
he got
got him.
me. He got me." And with him, I met him with another guy, and he was just I'll be honest with you, I just moved to LA, didn't have any friends, but yet I didn't want to be going to like following this guy anywhere. Yeah.
Mm.
And what I think what got me, it was the exact same thing. I was listening to the lessons, and it took me about 4 lessons, and then I was just hooked on the lessons. I was like, this is it. I'm gonna listen. I don't want to listen to this guy, but I want to listen to the message, kind of thing. So yeah, I was, and actually, even for me, growing up in the church after I passed, I was way more I'm not gonna say attracted, but I was way more like, what's that word? Like you kind of gravitate towards the older sisters. They're
Mm.
like they're way older than me.
Mm.
Yeah, they're like, because when you're 19 years old and someone's like 25, for me, that's a big gap. Like it's
Mm.
huge for me. I'm just like, whoa, they're like my older sister. And then the older sisters, they just take care of you so well. The way they listen, they'll buy you food and they'll talk to you and they'll listen to what you're saying. Where with the guys, it just wasn't like that. The guys were just trying to teach me.
Yeah, yeah. And that kind of goes back to your earlier comments, Chris, about like guys being kind of transactional. I do feel that way sometimes when it comes to evangelizing. Like I do kind of feel I'm investing my time, I'm investing my effort to teach, manage, and all these different things. So like I need them to reciprocate. Like you have to show equivalent effort, but it's oftentimes not really that way. And so
I was like that in the past, but then like because my brother's kind of there was a failure there, and I think I was too transactional with them, looking for the reciprocation that wasn't there. And
Right.
so
yeah.
either I felt hard on myself, or I kind of maybe took it out on them by being too hard on them. So I
Right.
really softened up after that, and then everybody I went after that, it was more love. But
Mm,
I kind of get into bickering or fights with my wife because
Mm.
she's exactly that way. Like if a newcomer or somebody, like she'll cook dinner for them or something,
mm,
and if they're not, starting to change their mind about God and like come towards him a little bit in the next few weeks, then she's just like over them and done with them. And I'm like, no, we need to, just show them love, and you don't know how long it's gonna take. Like,
Mm.
I won't invest a lot of time if they're not that interested, but every once in a while I feel like I should reach out to them as a friend instead of having an agenda.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey,
I've
Cameron, what were
learned,
you were just saying something about transactional?
He was saying about evangelism, how he feels
Oh
evangelism
yeah,
is
right.
transactional for him.
right,
And
because
when I
what
think
you're
back to
saying
it,
is,
the way I was evangelized, like Pastor Joseph, he would spend money on me. He would come over and like make me dinner. He would have me over to his house, and I would sometimes sleep over there. I mean, it sounds like kind of a pedophilia kind of thing, but he was that caring to that level.
Right.
Like I remember sleeping over at his house, and he had the Korean, like the hot lamps on me, like I'm a baby chicken. Like,
what? What? Gonna hatch.
But
but
Cameron,
he was
yeah,
that loving and caring, and he
yeah.
won me over with that. He won me over completely.
Mm.
Well, Cameron, you got finished what you were gonna say?
Yeah, because what you're saying is like you naturally gravitated towards like those older sisters who really take good care of you, right?
Right.
I think for us guys, we have a harder time doing that for other guys. Like it's more of, I guess, like a direct approach, like, hey, you got to get it. And if they're not kind of picking up on it, that patience, we kind of run out of it, and yeah, and kind of trying to force things, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, I find that kind of what Chris was saying too is there came a point where I realized I was too transactional also, and even with leadership. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because in
Mm-hmm.
leadership, you sacrifice so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the stuff people don't see. There's just a lot of stuff you sacrifice. You know what I mean? And you realize later is like, well, it's because they don't know. Like no one knows what you've done, right? But I would be like, do you know what I've done just to reach this point, kind of thing? And you kind of have an expectation for people to kind of, respond in the same way. But I think interestingly for me is after I stepped down from head leading is when I started to realize more deeply. Like the reflection where you kind of look back and you're like,
right.
Oh, I shouldn't have done it like that.
Yeah.
Oh, why would I do it? You kind of have that in your head, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why would you do it like that?
Yeah.
And I listened to this one missionary when I was in South Africa. I was talking to a pastor, like from the former faith, and they were telling me the story of a Korean missionary that went to Africa, and their church is like 200 people already after like 7-8 years. It went from 0 to 200.
Wow.
And I was like, what did he do? Because I'm like, oh, how did he do it? He's like, he doesn't even speak the language. And all he did was go around the village, helping people in the fields, helping people with certain things. That's all he's doing the entire time, is just helping each and every family, taking care of the kids, playing with the kids, going to the fields, like plowing the fields. He's just all he was doing. And eventually people just started coming to Christ.
Wow.
And he doesn't speak the language. He doesn't know the language.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So when I listened to that, he's like, he put in 7 years of work to get that. And I think if we become calculating and too transactional, I think we're going to kind of be in that position where we have so much expectation of people when honestly they don't really need to like respond to us. Really, right? Because go ahead.
Do you think the same thing would happen in America, where people maybe either they don't want your help or they won't appreciate your help as much as people from Africa would?
I think we got to look at it from a different cultural perspective where, you don't want, we're not just walking into someone's work and helping them, right? But
Right.
if you look at your story, what Pajo did for you, it's kind of incredible, like what he's doing. And he's not saying or like having that like, come on, man, look what I've done for you. Or he doesn't have that did you ever feel he had the expectation?
There, the carrot and the stick. There were times he was very wise. I mean, I didn't feel the expectation at all. But when he
Right.
saw that I was hooked, when he saw that I had more expectation for myself, then he impressed more expectation upon me to try to get me to raise my level. And so he was very wise about it. Because there were times when he would use tough love as well. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, I've known him for a long time, so even like 2, 3, 4 years in, there would be times when he would use the tough love, but at first, very soft, very, very just giving everything.
So, like, this is one we're kind of talking about why it's so tough to evangelize guys. Yeah. And why it's harder for guys to evangelize guys. Like, what do you think would be the easiest way for a guy to evangelize a guy?
That's actually tough a little bit because
And
I think
it helped that Joseph was 20 years older than me.
Right.
If somebody came off the street the same age as me and started treating me like Pastor Joseph treated me, it would be so weird.
Yeah.
I think building a friendship is probably the best way, because you can actually start to understand them in their life, and you kind of get invested, like not from in a more I don't know, like a friendly way, right?
Right.
Um, and I think that you also can grow together. And
Mm.
I think that's probably the easiest way, but even
So
that's hard sometimes.
yeah. But then if you're gonna grow together, then you probably need people the same age, right?
Right, right.
So then, but when you initially meet people, like sports is probably one of the biggest, like probably the easiest ways that we're able to meet guys, right?
If you're talking about the spiritual aspect though,
Yeah,
of meeting the right person at the right time,
right,
I mean, Pastor Joseph, when I look at the people that he's evangelized and they all either become leaders or, they're doing really well. And
right.
then even a lot of their family members come. So he's picking people where there's like a will for the entire family. He's setting the condition of prayer first. And
Yeah.
so I feel like if that wasn't there, then he wouldn't be able to do anything.
Well, I have another thing then. Even if someone like there's like people who set like this big spirit prayer condition, but even when I know like Pajo, he wasn't someone who just like scanned and like there is the will, and then he starts going towards that person has the will. Like
Mm.
when I hear his stories is like, yeah, I met about 100 people a day and I finally met the
Wow.
person. You know what I mean? Like he'll
Okay.
meet, and he'll just keep meeting the wrong people, meaning
Okay.
that, he's not really just like kind of scanning and he's like, oh, I see a halo, the aura, right? Oh, John Wick. And he runs towards that person. Like I've never heard him talk like that. He's mainly like, yeah, I've been out for 8 days straight. I'm like,
Okay.
what? He's like, yeah, 5 hours. I'm like, what? You know? And
Mm.
it kind of, I kind of see it as maybe guys don't have that, the motivation,
Tenacity.
yeah, tenacity to do that for evangelism. You know what I mean? Because maybe
Yeah,
it's because,
100%.
yeah,
100%. I think it's we tend to do things if it has benefit or has payoff, right?
right,
And so with evangelism, you really have to put in a lot of effort. I spent a whole year focused on evangelism, and 2 or 3 guys passed that year. So that's a whole
That's
year.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it was a miracle, I'm telling you, because I had never successfully evangelized up to that point. So yeah, it was a real miracle, but it took that level of dedication um, to do it successfully. And I think statistically, I would love to have a statistic, but
So what did
I
you
think
do that worked? How did you get 2 to 3 guys?
consistently reaching out to different people. So like my goal was like 100 a week. So like 20 a day,
right.
basically. And then those that were responding the most, we focused lectures like twice a week.
Mm.
Where was this in Georgia?
Yeah, yeah. It was when I was spending time in Athens for
Ah,
yeah, about a year, I think.
hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So then
How'd you
how many
meet?
people?
How'd you meet 100 people
Yeah,
on the street?
No, at campus. So
Okay.
in Athens, it's a college town. So
right,
people really don't have anything to do except for to party and study. Or like there's a big football team, so go to football games.
Mm.
Or if they're religious, which is what we're looking for, study the Bible. So,
right.
and I'm also in the Bible Belt, so that helps a lot because people, it's normal to approach somebody and say, "Oh, are you interested in learning about Jesus?" And it's like, yeah.
So did you take that approach? Is that what you said to 100 people?
I use like a survey method. Um, I use like Adam and Eve.
Mm,
So, like, were they the first human beings? How
Mm.
were Cain and Abel born, and Seth? Um, who did they marry, right? And so it made people think more critically
mm,
about like what's just stated in the Bible. that there's more to the Bible that we need to see from like a spiritual perspective. So that was a pretty good hook that we used.
Okay, so I have a big question then for you. After that year of putting all that effort in, what if 0 people passed? Then what would you, yeah,
I
what
would have
would your
been
mindset be?
I would be very discouraged and burnt out.
Uh,
Yeah, because it took a physical toll on me just to do that. I mean, I didn't do it with that much wisdom, so I do fault myself for that. It was something that I needed to improve on.
right.
How many
But
hours a day would you say you spent on it?
3 hours.
Okay.
Oh wow, that's a lot. You know,
Yeah.
I think maybe one of the things that we have to think about as guys is maybe we're very result oriented. Like we're very result based.
Super
Like
result.
not like yeah, like nothing is worth it unless there's a result. But you know, in the end, if you evangelize for an entire year and 0 people pass, like I think me and Chris are both shocked when you say 3 guys passed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in most cases, like we're talking the majority of people who evangelize, they haven't even evangelized a single person.
Yeah. What in the world?
Isn't that true? Because
Wow.
that's one of the comments that came out. It was pretty harsh, but it's like, well, a girl was saying that, you know, these guys who are getting married have never even evangelized a single person. They're not even qualified. So they owe God even after they get married. You know what I mean? But I think that's not just guys, it's guys and girls. Like there's many people who have never evangelized a single person. Right? I know one
Mm.
person who was evangelizing for 5 years and he never got a single person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if I were to
Well,
ask you
here's
guys right, yeah, go ahead.
well, here's something like on what was it, Thursday or Wednesday, we were talking about on your podcast how you
Yeah.
admire Christians for giving glory to God in every single way, but in Providence, we only focus on evangelism,
Mm.
evangelism, evangelism. So how do you reconcile the need to evangelize people, which really is a big need, with,
Right.
spending our 3 hours a day, if we're calculating it, like Cameron said, 3 hours a day instead of evangelism, doing something else to glorify God?
Well, I would say for personally myself, I would say it would depend on what the department they're in and what they do. Like imagine you're a doctor,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If you're a doctor, you're not going to spend those 3 hours on campus anyways, because you're a doctor. Like you're not going to be on campus. So
Mm.
they have to give glory while they're being a doctor, while they're praying for people, or they talk about they're always in the chapel praying for people that are like who are sick or whatever it is, right? They give glory. Like, haven't you guys met those people in the form, whether it's people, friends, or family? They just talk about God all the time, normally, just so normal, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just so blessed today. Oh, I was so blessed. Oh man, you should see what happened. Your God did this for me today, and it's very, very natural. Where it feels like this is just my personal opinion. Sometimes it feels like we have to gather, and it has to be some type of event where we're testifying.
That's true, because I think like if we let down kind of our wall that we have, and instead of just being like I have to evangelize, and if we just like naturally testify to people around us, then naturally evangelism might happen, right?
Yeah, I like when I look at like former faith churches. Are you guys both? You guys were both from Christianity,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? We're all from the former faith. I'll go visit a church and you'll have 100 people give their life to Christ at that service. 50
Yeah.
people, 70
Yeah.
people. It's like
Yeah.
the service itself was enough.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember like even during the week, we just hang out. We hang out, we go to watch a movie, we go to someone's house to eat, we just talk, we play video games. It was kind of fun. And
Mm-hmm.
I had such an amazing group of older brothers and sisters where I was like hero worshiping them. They were so good and they were giving glory in their life all the time. And they'd invite us out. And I would want to go to church even when it wasn't Sunday. Oh, we're all going to church. Oh, yeah. And like, that's something I remember. It's like the community was huge. It was such a big part of it. And imagine having like that type of atmosphere. You just invite people into that. Hey, what are you guys doing? Well, we're going to church. We're just going to play some video games. Oh, cool. Yeah, let's go. Hey, we'll play some sports. And after that, we're going to cut some watermelons and stuff. Some people bought that for this. And they're like, oh, yeah, God really inspired me to give you guys this. Like, it's kind of like a natural, it felt very natural to me. I had no problems inviting my friends from high school. Yeah. Where I just don't feel that in Providence.
Do you think, because obviously we have fewer numbers, but
Right.
I've been to like Pastor Sharon's house, and there's that commune type of feel there because she's living with Providence people, and like
Right.
every day feels like kind of a family gathering or a party, where,
Right.
no matter what day it is, it could be a Monday, you whip out the food, you have, you talk and you have fun. Um, even though it's a few people. So do you think it matters that Providence is small, or do we just need to have more of that community minded, let's come over, let's eat with one another,
Okay.
the commune type feel?
I am going to go a little bit racist right now. I'm going to go a little bit on race. And I'm going to talk to
Because they're
Cameron first
black?
here. Well, I think there's very cultural aspects to it that are different from very individualistic cultures. Latin cultures, black cultures are more community together, barbecues, eating watermelon,
But when we're
not
talking
being
about
racist.
together,
Yeah.
aren't Asians one of those cultures?
I
Or
do.
not really?
I think Asians are that culture too. Asians are very, very family community style, and that's why it thrives. Like Korean churches thrive wherever they go. They're in the
So
thousands
it's the
upon
white
thousands.
people who are ruining America.
Well, it's cis white males, right? That's where all the problems start from, right? Yeah. Like even Middle Eastern, like Arab nations too. It's very interesting. They're very family always stick together. Even if they get married, they still live in the same house. But I'm saying that I do think there's a difference when it comes to say like Cameron would tell me that his family every week their family gathers together for dinner.
Yeah.
Every week it's like a big Sunday dinner. Mom's cooking. People are, it's kind of like the Huxtables, if anyone can get that reference.
No idea.
The Cosby Show, the Huxtables. No.
Okay.
Maybe not. Forget it. I have shown my age. Like I think it's way more, it's really, really different. Where like even my family right now in Vancouver, my brother, he's got all the keys, all the codes to the house here. Sometimes the home is empty. I just come home, he's already there sitting on the couch, eating, watching TV. And then my mom says, all right, this Sunday, brother's coming over. We're gonna have lobster tails and steak. And I was like, really, Mom? He's like, yeah, I'm a little bit lazy, so I don't want to cook. So I was like, okay. But she'll cook it, and my uncle comes over, my aunt comes over. It's just kind of a natural thing. Everything's
Well, it's
shared.
You touched on something really good, which is like building that kind of family culture and community. So my time in Houston was really refreshing because they capture that essence so well. Like, and it's obvious because like there are families at the church, right? So it's like
Right.
they're kind of the foundation. And I think for churches where families can support ministry, like to help build that culture or the community, I think that we could make a lot of headway with that.
That's an interesting thing you just brought up, because don't we usually try to separate the families from like the campus and stuff so that they do their own thing?
Yeah.
Right. Usually we try to separate it. But
But
if you have family,
I think it's a bad idea for many reasons. One is like the lack of manpower, and lack of experience. Like I've had so many failures in evangelism because I literally did not know what to do to take care of a life. and to
Right.
manage them well. Whereas if they had not just looked to me as like the person taking care of them, they
Right.
saw the whole church, they knew the families, then they could have worked through the problems like with them too.
Right. You know what? I think they're probably the reason why we separated because there might have been problems. Like, say, people who are from another culture, another country that come over here, they might cross boundaries and lines and make newcomers uncomfortable.
Can you give an example?
Like, for
What about?
instance, it becomes more like the agenda is very, very like obvious. They'll treat someone nice and it's like, hey, come to Bible study. Come to like they're all they're doing is trying to ask people to come to Bible study, come to Bible study, where it's like it's not natural. Or I've seen it where it's like some people you don't want to be there. Like it's better you not be there for that event kind of thing. Because I've seen that happen, like even in New York, like some of that stuff actually happened. But now that I think about it, if you look at a like a place like Houston, the one I'll say the same thing is I like that the atmosphere there because it's super family like, very
Yeah.
Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
But I think one
And
difference there could possibly be because they have a lot of like Western couples,
Yeah.
maybe, or
Yeah, for sure.
Westernized.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Hmm.
are we talking Western or Southern? Because aren't a lot of the people from south of the border?
Yeah, yeah, the Southern, but Western in
There's
terms
the
of globally.
because
Well,
it's that
they're not from
like you
Mexico.
said,
They're yeah. Go ahead.
the culture, the Latino culture
Right.
is really close knit. Because you go places like I know we had to start Providence in like the biggest cities, but in New York, it's really like cold
Oh,
personally. Like
hmm.
people are
Right.
cold to each other,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
LA, you know, I don't know what the culture is right there, but some people say like the church isn't very closely knit. And I think that has to do
Uh.
with the whole culture of like it takes forever to get anywhere in traffic. So how are you going to spend time with one another if you don't have any time? You're spending it other ways. But Houston, you know, is a cheaper city and people they can gather more easily and they have more money for resources and for like just well-being and life in general, so it's more laid back, so you can kind of have that.
Actually, I have me and a couple other leaders before really talked about that, how going to the major cities is it's really difficult in major cities because it's so busy and people are not
You're
as
just
personal.
trying to
Yeah.
survive like
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
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 But you go down to the Bible Belt, it's cheaper. People are way more friendlier. There's Southern hospitality. People are just, everyone's just cool with each other. Everyone says hi, which is really odd in New York,
Yeah.
right? It's odd in LA. LA, everyone's so far apart from each other. And that's why, even for me, a lot of people have the discussion like, it's probably better to go to the Bible Belt.
I concur. Come join us. Come join us.
Would you say that, what would you like? But in Georgia, you have Atlanta, which is the major city. And then you went to Athens, which is like the college town. Like for you, like there's got to be a drastic difference between those two places.
Yeah, yeah, big, huge difference. Yeah. I mean, it's the demographics really, because what people are doing in a college town is just different than a major city.
Right.
So, yeah.
Because I would say Atlanta's one of the isn't it one of the largest cities in America?
Mhm. Yeah.
And Houston's not that large. Houston's large, but it's not like Atlanta size.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I remember at one point Houston was one of the fastest growing cities in America, but then
Yeah.
it's nothing close to Dallas.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's why a bunch of people were talking about maybe it's better to start the church in the South, where it's very difficult in the big metropolitan cities.
Yeah.
And like like what would you say about Minnesota? When you're in Minnesota, Chris, is it for you?
I mean, we're laid back, and I think if we had manpower, then we would do pretty well. There's there's plenty of people here.
Uh,
I try to make friends through sports with the little free time that I have, and make connections through that. But yeah, I need to go outside the box and maybe go to a university around here.
uh, yeah, I find that what I find interesting about evangelism is I find that street evangelism is it's like 90% effort. Like you have to put 90% is all effort. Where when I see the former faith, it's less effort because the community is there. So it's like
Yeah.
30% and it's just put into this love community,
Well,
right?
look at the Jehovah's Witness that just stand there and they're just talking to each other the whole time while they have their their little stand with the pamphlets.
Yeah.
They're just talking, having a good time with each other for like 9 hours a day. And then people are going back and forth. I don't even know if they talk to a single person.
Right.
I never see them talking to anybody except between themselves, but they're evangelizing.
And they're super organized because they come to my house about once a month because I have a Jehovah's Witness church right across the street from like maybe like 5-minute walk away. And once a month they come just see how things are going. Hey, how's it going? You guys doing well? Yeah, I was like, oh, cool. Thank you so much for the watchtower. And then they leave. They're pretty low key and cool. They're not really pushy at all. I would say,
Yeah, our Jehovah's
Providence,
Witness here
Providence,
are lazy.
Providence is probably a little bit more like a lot more aggressive compared to other like churches.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
and I
like,
think it's important to have a thorough discussion for each church on improving the method of evangelism, because I've seen that most of the time it's just the same thing repeated year after year after year, and
right.
it's not really any big changes to really try to acclimate to the church's situation, the culture, right? Because there's a method that will work in each place, but you have to iterate, you have to trial and error different
Mm,
things, you know?
yeah, like the surveys and like just street evangelism by itself, just inviting directly to Bible study. I think it's one of the uh most time consuming ones you can have.
But it bears fruit. You can't lie about that. You can't deny that.
True, it bears fruit, but when you look at the overall big picture, we're not bearing a lot of fruit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we're just not. Like, how many churches are pushing 10% a year? Like 10%, what Sunstein talked about is like 10% is usually the number, 10% a year. How many churches are doing that on average over the last 5 years? Right? We're looking at probably zero.
Yeah.
The ones that we know, right? Like our churches or the ones that I've been to, I haven't seen a church pulling in 10%. I've seen churches pull in 10% for like one amazing year. And then it goes back to normal after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a landlord, and me and my wife, we prayed to buy a property nearby, and we did that. And I also prayed that I was gonna do, instead of having a family live over there, I was gonna do a group of 3 guys and rent out each room.
Yeah.
And so I was praying that that I could get somebody who would come to Providence, to put it bluntly. And Charles' mom actually reached out to me on Facebook, and she's like, "My son is looking for a room," and and he, what did I forget the ad, but I was looking for like Christian guys. I told him it was a Christian atmosphere,
Right.
and I mean, he came in, and a few months later, I was able to connect him to Bible study.
Mm.
I mean,
Wow.
that's not one of our Providence methods, but who could have told me that would actually work? I
Right.
I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because the way, like, even the ways that, like, the different ways that we try to do things, like to evangelize, I find it very interesting because most of our methods are limited, and they're limited, and there's a time constraint. For instance, if you just do your friends, you run out when there's no more friends,
That's true.
right?
I run out
Like,
pretty fast.
yeah. And then, like, Chris, if it's people renting the place, they're not going to rent the place for like a month, pass, and then go out, and then someone else comes in, then you pass them, and they're going to stay there for like a year.
And that's a good thing, because
Yeah.
Charles had to finish his lease and the lessons before he left.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, there's a time constraint, because if they don't
Right.
study, they're there for the year.
That's true. And we had
Right.
that circumstance as well.
Mm.
We had one that went bad.
Yeah. So then we look at that as like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense now, because, those ones are very, very limited. Like, we'd have to go out to street evangelism to find someone else. Right. Where,
I mean, you do it in your careers, like Connie from New York. What is she, a hairstylist or something?
yeah.
I think, or something in like Chinatown, I think. She just like gets clients and meets people in her business and day to day, and brings in like families of Chinese members,
Right.
and even people and doctors,
Yeah. So
they evangelize in their workplace. But
yeah. So I think there's going to be multiple different ways, but I think it's the way that we do it. The limitation is, imagine if all three of us are in the same church and we all have our different methods of doing it. Then you have, like, say your church has 1 or 2 full-time people that has to go to like 3 different areas, try to match the times in the 3 areas twice a week or something along that line, where you're putting in 4 or 5 days, including 4 hours, including travel, plus eating together and talking to them every time you meet each one of their newcomers, which is 4 to 5 times a week, because there's 3 of us and we all have a newcomer each, where now we're so limited because that lecturer has to go out there, but we're so limited in manpower, where our strategy has to change, where we have to bring everyone together somehow. You know what I mean?
well, like in
Yeah.
my circumstance, since I'm a satellite region,
Yeah.
it was easy because I work around either Pastor Gabe or Steve Handy or whoever's teaching. I work around their schedule, and then we do it over Zoom.
But it's still the same thing, because they're part of another church who has their members who are evangelizing, and then they need to take their time out still to do like 7-8 separate people for one lecture, kind of thing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's still super limited. It's super
Yeah.
limited. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the solution here, Pastor Sky?
Well, the solution, right? Yeah, the solution is, it's got to become more community driven.
Mm.
It's got to be way more community driven, where it's like every Thursday we have game night, and everyone just you just keep inviting people to game night, and then after that, people at game night, you're doing it at a church anyways, and people would be like, hey guys, for those of you guys are interested, we do have Bible studies on Mondays on Zoom, or this, and this, so those of you guys are interested, you guys can talk to us about that too. Like, that's kind of how a normal regular church does it.
New York's been doing a lot of activities.
Right.
I'm not there, so I don't know how they really go, but they say ping pong is pretty popular, and they do like a running meetup group on like Saturdays.
Right.
And they get a lot of people there, and they do it consistently now, so that I think they have, well, Darren told me they had like 2 people that almost were reaching the end, and they came from those natural groups. But
Yeah, and I think that eventually, like, even that is good, but it's still limited if you're taking them separately and separating them out to 2 different lecturers, kind of thing, right? Where, in order for things to work out, because I think one of the things
you
that
think
we
there
do,
should be group lectures?
yeah, I think there should be
You
group
know,
lectures.
you know what, Pastor Joe, speaking of Africa, I mean, you're telling the story of the Christian guy
Yeah.
who was doing the labor in Africa, but Pastor Joseph's teaching like an entire village in Africa.
Mm.
He went straight for the jugular, and he evangelized as a Christian pastor. and through that he can, you know, evangelize. Like they have a school there, so he can teach in that school and make it very community driven with just himself as the
Right.
point person. It just takes one guy and he's got a whole village.
Which is going to be the difference in culture of somewhere in Africa compared to somewhere in America, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying the thing I'm saying is there's a way that we have to. The one thing I disagree with evangelism, the way that we, because I like this topic right now because we're talking about how to evangelize better, right? Especially the guys. The one thing I find that we do, I think, not as well is we are so catered to an individual that when we have an event, we don't even know what time it's at. We're just saying, oh, what time can you make? Oh, what time can, oh, if we go at this time, then this person can't make. If we go at this time. But most people are like, you go to regular church, it's just like Tuesday, 7 p.m., we're going to have this thing. If you can make it, you can make it. If you can't, you can't. That's it. It's done, right? Where we're like so generated towards that individual. And I think that's going to be one of our things that's going to limit us. Like what I
The
did
thing
in,
with that
yeah,
is getting over like kind of, you got to get over kind of like the awkwardness of the initial approach, because what something that we started doing because we had a few people interested in doing Bible study. So
uh,
with New York on Thursday night, we set a time, and then we were like, we're going to do Bible study here. But for the past few weeks, there hasn't been really any newcomers that were slated to, you know, come to the event. So we canceled the event.
yeah. What I would
So we
do
can't get
is,
anybody to go to the event.
yeah,
We have
that's
the
what I'm,
event prepared, but
yeah.
you know,
Well, that's why for me is I don't think we should have someone in mind when we make the event. Oh,
uh,
we have two newcomers, so we have them in mind, but then if they don't come, then we don't have an event. Do you know what I mean?
so hold the event even just if it's us.
I when we had newcomer services in New York, it was regardless of a newcomer came or not, right? Because the last thing you want is people to waste their time coming all the way to church, and then it's like, oh, we're canceled. Not a single newcomer is here, and I felt that was the wrong way to do it. The best way to do it is just set the condition. Keep doing it. You get better and better and better so that later on, when it gets much better, people will come to a much more refined event. Like we need practice,
Mm.
right? Regardless if newcomers come or not, just do it. Just do it. We got to learn how to do it better, right? And that's why we did it for like a year. When I was there before I stopped head leading, we did it for like a year and a half. We never missed. Someone in charge of the snacks. We had this, and then we would have the meetup. We put the meetup. We have a sunset service, 5 p.m. on Sundays. Please join us. And then we have our Thursday Bible studies at 7 p.m. with a large group. That was another meetup that came. And sometimes we'd have one newcomer. Sometimes we have 12. It was just,
Since,
yeah.
since you say guys are results oriented, what was the final result of your
Um,
experiment?
we had a couple people starting to study, and we took them out to do individuals when we reached, because our Thursday Bible studies was only up to a certain point. And
Right,
then we
right.
restarted again because, some people are going to come once or twice or whatever it is, right?
Makes sense.
So, yeah. So from there, we kind of shifted it over. But the one thing I did like when I was in Malaysia, it was like Monday Zoom Bible studies.
Mm.
I just told them 7 p.m. every Monday, I'm going to go on Zoom. And we had about the first time I did it, the first time, it was 130 people in the Zoom room.
Jeez, please. What?
Yeah.
Just Providence people, or just random people?
Providence people who came just for themselves, and also people who brought their friends.
Mm.
And after that, the real running average was around 85 to 95 in that room.
Mm.
And we went straight to the end. Yeah, we went straight to the end. I didn't stop. I just kept going all the way until history lesson. I went straight into it.
So would you say the advertisement done was people bringing their friends? Was there anybody that wasn't brought by a friend that just like saw an
No,
advertisement or
they're
something?
all people who were just, it was the event for people to just invite people. Hey, Zoom
So
Monday, Zoom Bible study, Pastor Sky's teaching. All right, cool. And then they just start inviting their friends to it. Hey, we got a Bible study. There's a pastor from Canada, this, and this, da, 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 da. And then they start inviting people.
they were friends or they were acquaintances, people off the
Both.
street.
There's both.
Both.
Yeah, there's both. And then friends who liked it, then they bring their friends.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think there's just a lot of different ways that we can do it, where we can utilize manpower a lot better. And I understand, though, that some people are like, oh, but some people are very different than others and they need the extra help, like the personalized Bible study. And I would say, yeah, there are going to be some people like that, but I just don't think the way that we do it now is going to bring in a lot of people. I just don't think it'll bring a lot. We're going to stay within the same realm of, I don't know, like a church the size 50 should be doing 5 a year, but then every 2 years they should go to 6, right? Because it's always 10% is growing to 55 to 60. Then all of a sudden you need 6 people within 2 years every year, right? So it should be constantly growing, right? So I think the way we do it will not hit 10%, because the stat is usually 10% of your church is actually running. Because, they don't have families and jobs, stuff like that. About 10% is running, which means that you need a church of 50 has 5 people running, and then those 5 people have to evangelize 5 people for that year. So it's basically like 1 person each, which I don't think is going to happen. I've never seen that before. So I think it's a really, really big topic that people should discuss. Either way. Yeah, we've been at this for like an hour and 15 minutes already, by the way.
Sweet.
So and you finally got an either way in there, right at the end.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want the $100 from you. I didn't want the $100 from you. I feel bad. Okay. Well, I guess we will end it here. I hope you guys really enjoyed this kind of thorough discussion of evangelism, and I hope it's something that you guys will really will all take to heart, especially not just male evangelism, but evangelism in general. Everyone have an awesome week, and we'll see you guys again next week. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah.